Welcome to the Contagious Code Podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I'm Tejas Kumar, and I've been building on the web for over 20 years at places like Vercel, Spotify, Zeta, and more. Today on the podcast, my guest is Jack Herrington. Jack is a prolific YouTuber with a very large audience, frankly. He has like some 200,000 subscribers or something, most of whom are senior developers. Jack's content is high-quality technical deep dives with a lot of nuance and really valuable information. In fact, Jack serves as an inspiration to me for this podcast. I've been a fan of Jack Herrington for years, and so this is a very special episode. If you're a senior developer or you'd like to get your product in front of senior developers, then Jack is the person and the channel to do that on. We have links to Jack and so on in the show notes. Outside of YouTube, Jack is also a fairly active open source contributor and in fact is moving more to that direction. Jack participates in the TanStack ecosystem with contributions to Create TanStack Router app. We go into details about that too. We go into details specifically about being a YouTuber and being an open source contributor and getting into open source. And we finally dive into his contributions. And this is probably the best part about this episode. And, frankly, there's many, but we talk about something that Jack has been working on with Create TanStack Router app or Create TS Router app, which is using something called Model Context Protocol, which is an AI term to enable AI assistants like Cursor to just create TanStack Router apps complete to a user's specification. So with a single prompt, hey, create me a TanStack Router app to take notes, to track my gym routine, to whatever. Using his MCP extension, you can very easily create applications with TanStack Router just with a prompt. You don't even need to write code. It's kind of like V0 or Bolt.new, but like in Cursor. So we talk about that on the AI front as well. Jack is active across all realms, front end and AI and whatever. He's a true multidisciplinary expert. And if you're interested in any of those topics, then this episode is for you. Now, I'd like to offer this to all of you at no cost because this is very separate to my day job. And the way we can do that is through partners and sponsors. Let's take a moment and acknowledge them. The Contagious Code Podcast is partnered with Code Crafters. Code Crafters makes it very great to level up your career. How it works is you pick two things. You pick a programming language and you pick a software tool that developers use, something like Git or Redis or Docker or Postgres, whatever it may be. And what they have you do is they hold your hand through rebuilding those tools in the programming language you choose. So like build Docker, but with Rust in case you want to learn Rust. And by doing that, you get better at both the language, so something like Rust, and the tool, Docker, because you literally implement it from scratch in the language. It's a great place to learn, and they have a generous free tier, but should you start paying, you can get up to 40% off using the link in the show notes. That's tej.as/codecrafters. Thanks so much for sticking around. Here's my discussion with Jack Herrington. Jack Herrington, the great Jack Herrington. Welcome.
Nice to see you, Tejas. How are you doing, man?
Good. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time.
Me too.
Which is wild for me to hear that you've been looking forward to it because
I always love talking to you. What are you talking about? Every time I talk to you, I come away with like this fountain of ideas of things that I can do, particularly with AI. I'm always like, oh yeah, Tejas, AI, let's go.
It makes me super happy to hear. But I still think it's kind of ridiculous. I'll tell you why. Because like I've been a distant fan of yours for a long time, Jack. And it's a real feeling where you meet people you look up to and then like become friends with them and you're like, what, how, that's just, have you had those moments?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's actually been pretty much my history of going through all this sort of stuff is I'll meet folks at conferences. I'm like, oh my God, like it's amazing what you do. I'm a super fan, like meeting Daishi Kato and, just like, whoa, it's kind of starstruck. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like I've been doing this kind of shift over the I set myself a goal of really getting more into OSS this year. And the project that I wanted to work on was TanStack. And I think in February is when I really started reaching out to Tanner like, hey, I want to be involved. How do I get involved kind of thing. And it started off on Docs. And then we did this Create TS Router app project, which has been just awesome. And it's really just, it's kind of like changed my mindset. And now I'm like, I feel like I'm more in like the OSS camp than the influencer camp. And I feel really good about that because it's just great.
Awesome. That you have unlocked so many questions in me that I want to dive into. And I think this is exciting because it sounds like a bunch of things that you're also passionate about. In fact, that's
Yeah.
a reason for the name of the podcast. It's called Contagious Code because one, it's my name and all this, but also like I want to take what you're passionate about and make it contagious for the listeners that they also
Yes.
catch what you have.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you enjoy being in the OSS, that's open source software camp,
Right.
more than being in the influencer camp. I want to start there, and if we make it practical for listeners, we'll get eventually to hearing from you how to make that entry into OSS or
Mm.
transition to OSS. But before that, well, you've been, and like I've known you, Jack, as an influencer. I found you via your YouTube channel, and you have done just an enormous service to senior developers everywhere, right? Because like I think there's plenty of content out there that's, I'd say, short and fast. There's a lot of like, get started with this, get started with that. But yours is like deep dive, like, let's get into React.memo. I literally watched that in preparing my book, Fluent React.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, no, and you have like, no one else is doing what you do. And in fact, I'll do you one better. You were an inspiration to start this podcast, which is now known for like deep dive,
Oh,
right?
wow. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So now you
And
understand how
wow, that's
surreal
amazing.
this is for me. And so I've known you as this influencer. You've got this massive YouTube channel, like 200,000 or something subscribers, almost a quarter million or something.
No, just
Um,
a little bit, but well, whatever. It's okay. Yes,
yeah,
yes, it's
I mean,
amazing. Oh, it's
you've
always
got
amazing.
you've got this awesome YouTube button behind you, and so I want to talk about that. Can we talk about being a YouTuber, the journey, being the influencer? Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
like I think a lot of people listening start YouTube channels because like I'm gonna be a content creator, and then find out like I did. I also had my YouTube face where I found out like this is not one, this is a lot of work, and
Yeah.
two, the algorithm awards clickbait. It like helps people like,
Totally.
buy it.
Totally.
Like I found myself, and this is why I stopped YouTube. I found myself, making the face for thumbnails. You know, and this was when I was like,
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah.
good for me. I need to stop. So with that, Jack, I'd love to hear from you. Kind of getting into YouTube. What were you doing before that? How was that journey?
Sure. So before that, I was a principal engineer at Nike and Walmart. I did the uh, Walmart like React conversion, and then helped out with at Nike
Wow.
doing their stuff. And at Nike, I think was around the time when hooks started coming out. So it was I was ending up doing a lot of what I think principal engineers should do, which is education. So hooks come out, people don't really understand them all that well internally. So I kind of got into it and I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing some brown bags and I'm going to walk you through hooks and how they work and why they're advantageous versus something like, the class state stuff that we've been doing before or Redux or whatever. And just, doing those brown bags. And I'm like, well, there's like 20 people in this room and I'm teaching them. I need to teach, a bunch of folks more at Nike. And also, so why don't I just put this on YouTube? And that was basically the genesis of like things like no BSTS, where it was like just kind of like, hey, we're gonna go dig into like TypeScript or something like that, but do it in a very short and succinct way. Not a lot of intro, not a lot, enough intro to kind of set up a contextual mental framework of where this knowledge that I'm going to drop in your head should go in your tree of knowledge. But then beyond that, just pretty much straight into it. And if you don't get it, well, watch it multiple times or put it on like, 0.75, whatever you need to do. But like, just the kind of short and sweet stuff. And so that's always been my jam. Is like, I'm a person who doesn't want to spend a lot of time. Like I just want you to get straight to the point on stuff. But also I think there's a little bit of weirdly insecurity there where it's like, I don't feel like people should watch me for a whole lot of time. Like I just like that's why I don't do these amazing like 3-hour live streams and stuff. It's because like, do people really want to watch me like just noshing on pretzels or whatever? Like every once in a while, I'm like, I wouldn't want to watch me doing that. What do you do? Like that's crazy. But yeah, that's basically the genesis was I was doing brown bags. I kind of wanted to scale that out. And I wasn't seeing anything like that on YouTube. I remember like one day I was kind of watching a YouTube video that was like something about jots. It was like, oh, and I need to learn jots, So I'm like, can I go onto this video and learn jots? And it was a 3-hour live stream of which like maybe 15 minutes, kind of like an hour in was on jots. And I'm like, really? Really? That's the state of the art of YouTube? So yeah, that's how I got into it.
For those listening, when he says JOT, he means JWTs,
Right.
which
JavaScript
are
Web
how you pronounce
Tokens.
JWT. But I think people would what's a
I
JOT, right?
guess, yeah, right. That's true. It's such a weird pronunciation of JWT, but like that's just seems to be the standard jot
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So so you were doing this like organically, like
yeah.
you were a YouTuber before you hit the record button, and the only difference really is just a camera.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I didn't even use a camera, yeah, I wasn't even on screen. I had a little recording booth kind of set up in my office where I would do the voiceover and stuff. And then, after a while, I'm like, you kind of get that vibe of like, okay, I want to actually do better. I want to get more subscribers, whatever that means. And, so everybody who seems to be successful, you start learning from other channels and
Yeah.
watching how they do it and all that. And so
That's so cool. Okay, so
showing
that's
up
what
on
you
screen is so
started.
funny.
You started
Yeah.
because you were kind of doing this already and you wanted to
Yeah.
do it more. How did you grow it? And while you think about that, I will say this. I started this podcast, kind of in a similar way. I was speaking at conferences, but talks were like 25 minutes, maybe 30. And I'm like, what? I can't say all that I have to say about that. Like, I want to talk to you like at a compiler level, but you're
Oh,
having me talk
yeah.
to you at like the top,
Yeah.
And so there was this hunger for like I have to do, and so then I started the YouTube channel, the podcast, excuse me, for that reason.
Yeah. So you can get into the weeds on it. Yeah.
Exactly, and this is something that you do extremely well. So with that context, between the starting and now, what was that like? Was it difficult to have the algorithm like pick you up? Did you have to work on like metadata and tags and
Oh,
do thumbnails
totally.
matter? And
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, right, that this is what there's like several phases of YouTube career for folks. And what they find is like when they start getting up into like a couple hundred and they start like the algorithm starts putting their stuff out there and they're getting more visibility, that if they want to take it up to that next level, you got to start competing on that algorithmic basis. You have to start like kind of doing the weird, funky, thumbnails and the clickbaity titles, and it's always this trade off of like, do I really want to do that? Like, what's my original intention for doing this, and is that compatible with the YouTube algorithm? I don't want to bend too much to that. And you get these folks who are like, oh, my content's so good, I shouldn't have to put a thumbnail on it. Everybody should just want to watch me. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, you do have to sell it, and it is a marketing thing. And I think that's actually something that I've learned a lot through this journey is how much is about marketing yourself, and it's not just YouTube. It's everything. Like if you want to be an OSS creator, like yeah, a part of that is actually it's great if you make the world's most amazing library that does something that's never been done before, but you kind of have to market it. You have to figure out who is my target audience for this thing, what's their pain point, how do I go and advertise it in a way where folks get interested in it, all that kind of stuff. It's marketing.
yeah. Yeah, but marketing usually it's interesting because I feel like developers specifically and also other listeners of this podcast hear the term marketing and immediately associated with something negative. like oh, this is a marketing talk. Oh, these are marketing people. But I think that maybe just because marketing is typically associated with an outcome in like revenue, money, profit.
Right.
But
Or that it's disingenuous, right? It's like they're telling you something that's not actually going to happen.
yeah, yeah. But not all marketing has that desired outcome, right? Sometimes, like for example, if you create a really awesome open source library, you market it because you're like, hey, this is the better way. Like you're going to have faster app. Everyone's going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
Has that? So I guess the question I have for you in this context is in growing your YouTube channel. I haven't seen you give into the clickbait and like create like screaming face thumbnails and things like this. But you have grown. Oh, he's like you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
didn't watch enough of my
I don't
channel.
know. There's a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but they definitely get like the pushback every once in a while of, ooh, that was kind of clickbaity. I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe I stepped over the line a little bit too much on that one.
yeah. But I would say like less than average.
Yeah, I try to be. Yeah.
But the algorithm still rewards you. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, like, what's the how?
Oh, I don't know. I think you could argue that the algorithm doesn't actually. I think based on my subscriber counts, in fact, that's kind of interesting. Like the whole YouTuber community has been or at least dev user YouTuber community, trying to figure out what's been going on with the audience, because like mid last year, like the tutorial market on YouTube just dropped through the floor, went to like 50% of views for folks who did the longer tutorial form, and I kind of migrated sort of slowly into that form a little bit more, and so I've started coming back to like more of the 15-minute range for my videos exclusively. But they were seeing a lot of downturn, and I'm kind of wondering if it's like a GPT thing. Like most folks were just, okay, if I'm going to go looking for advice on how to do this, what am I going to look for? A YouTube video, or I'm just going to type my problem into GPT and have it walk me through it? And I think that was part of it. So yeah, it's very interesting seeing how the audience is shifting, and will the audience start negatively like looking at clickbait? Like my Medium, when I get my Medium thing in the morning, like email, like every single article that's listed on there has the same clickbaity formula, 5 reasons why you should dump this, or like you've never seen a library like this one, and I'm like, oh come on. After a while, it's like I'm just gonna start pulling away from that stuff, because it's just like ugh, right? So yeah, it's always like looking at audience trends and seeing where they're going.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear about the algorithm changing on you. Because a good friend of ours, I think a mutual friend, James Q. Quick, recently, he was a full-time YouTuber, and he's like, I'm going to take a job because this algorithm is so unpredictable.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I mean, I'm kind of going through similar sort of things, is trying to figure out, like, because I don't get paid enough to do, to do just by YouTube alone. Just like nothing. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lesson in there for people who want to be full-time YouTubers, that be careful, right? Because like,
for
one,
sure,
it probably doesn't pay much, and two, you're at the mercy of some algorithm that nobody else controls other than YouTube. So,
and it's very disheartening, because you put your heart and your soul into a really good YouTube video, and you're like, man, I worked days on this thing, and this is such valuable content, and then it gets whatever you consider a small amount of views, a couple hundred, whatever. And you're like, wow, that really, that's not great. And you just didn't find an audience match there. Like, people aren't. That's the thing. YouTube is the world's, like, first or second largest search engine, right? And it's a search engine, so people are searching for something. You are saying that you're going to provide that. Well, you need to provide it, and two, you need to be covering what the folks are actually trying to search about. And if you don't do that, well,
that's valuable. There is like nobody's going to care about your content if people aren't searching for it. Right. And also the search algorithm surfaces what the algorithm decides is the most relevant to a user's query. So you've got to really think about that. Is this then why you've decided to move more from being a YouTuber to being an open source contributor?
I mean, I want to get back into coding. Like, being a YouTuber means, like, I'm going to go, my whole interaction with a project might be, 8 hours or whatever, like that, just building out like another version of a demo for them or something like that. And, you don't really get, like, you don't get a sense of camaraderie with a team. You don't have that, like, morning stand-up thing where people care about, whatever. Not that I have that now, but like, I do have more camaraderie with this, this TanStack TanStack start team, or TanStack just in general now. And that feels really good. It's just, it's like, oh, I know these people, and these people know me, and they know me as a coder, as opposed to like YouTubers. So it's like, I'm the coder first, and then it's like, oh, well, I can make a video about what we just did. And that's just like a nice little add-on.
Yeah, I will say it's been my experience also with you. I'm not a YouTuber, definitely not of your caliber, but this podcast is on YouTube, and that is usually the worst performing channel of the podcast. Like the Contagious Code podcast on YouTube, I don't even know, but I doubt there's even like 1,000 views on episodes. It's bad, but it makes up for it with Spotify and Apple. Because also people, I think, for long form content would choose to do it when they're doing the dishes or driving or something like this, and they listen to it,
Yeah. A
But
lot
no,
of that.
YouTube can be merciless. And so okay, you've decided to say, "Hey, I want the camaraderie, I want the team, I want to do open source." You're well known in the open source industry just covering open source topics like React and so on. I have to imagine that gave you some type of good positive positioning to then get involved in these projects.
I suppose. I mean, it's really just stepping up and being like, okay, I want to handle this problem or that problem, and either jumping into the PR or the issues and making some PRs if that's
So you just
tactically.
chose TanStack, you went to the issues and you're like, I could fix that, and you asked
Yeah.
for wow.
I mean, we started off with documentation, so that's pretty easy to fix. Basically, the start documentation hadn't been updated in a little while. It was a little bit, behind the times. So fixing that. And then I was I was doing the CRA thing. So the React team had asked me to like look at the blog and provide some feedback on this CRA, Create React App Deprecation blog. And so I'd done that. And so I knew it was coming. And I think it was the Friday that it was released, like maybe 3 hours before that, I was in a channel with Tanner and a bunch of the other maintainers. And I was like, hey, what if we came out with like a create TanStack app that would go and replace CRA, create React app, and it'd basically give you the same foundation that CRA did, but on TanStack and Vite. So it's a much nicer starting point because I could sense that like the team is out, the React team is out there telling people, hey, we're not going to support create React app anymore. Your alternative is Next.js or Remix. And that's like walking into like a music store wanting to learn guitar and then passing you a saxophone and saying like, well, it's the same thing. You'll figure it out. It's all just notes, whatever. Let's go play. Let's go, whatever. It is two different skill sets. Like the Next.js does have a lot of server-side rendering and a lot of things you've got to worry about. And so if you're following a tutorial, if you're just trying to learn how to use React, if you're just following through a tutorial, right, you normally would be using this Create React app thing, and you'd expect to see like this spinning, React logo, and you'd come up with this Next.js thing. It's like, what is going on? I don't know. So let's go in there. Let's take that moment. And that's like a marketing in terms of a marketing thing. That's a moment in time where an opportunity that you're given to like go in and say, cool, well, here is a replacement so that you can just go in and say create blah app, and I had to change it to TS router app because TanStack had already been taken, sadly. But you do this create TS router app, and there you go. You've got this good starting point, and then from there we added all kinds of cool new features, which has been just really great because there's been a bunch of people who want to PR into it, and I think I'm probably a week doing what I shouldn't have done, which is working on OSS stuff instead of working on stuff that actually pays the bills. But because I was just so excited about it, I really wanted to have a system where you could add add-ons to it, where you could say, okay, well, cool, I want that, but I also want TanStack query or React query, which is what that is. I want like Sentry for error reporting. I want whatever, and it would go in and kind of add on to that code base. And then also I did some AI integration stuff, which has been really interesting and novel. So yeah, it's just been great. It's been really fun. And the response was great because like we got like 1,800 downloads, I think, in the first week, which is phenomenal for like a new OSS project.
Yeah. I want to double click on two things you said just now, which is one, this analogy between learning to play the guitar and being given a saxophone. I think that's so interesting because, like, in my mind, when you said guitar, right? Like, my prediction machine in my mind was like, he's gonna say it's like walking into a guitar store when you want to learn guitar and being handed not just a guitar, but a guitar and an amp and pedals and distortion pedals and all of it.
Okay, that too. Yeah,
Because
that's a better analogy. You're right.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I wanted to ask you about. So the React team has said, use Next.js instead of create React app. With TanStack, create TanStack app, does it still give you the same bare bones moment that create
Yeah,
React app did? Okay, so
absolutely.
but TanStack comes with like a router and it comes with a query, a data layer, and so on. Does it give you that as well in this initial moment, or?
Right. So the out of the box, if you just say npx create TS router app and then my app, whatever, it creates a a JavaScript application, not TypeScript, that has exactly the same location for everything. It's got, source app is your app component, and it's got the spinning, logo and the whole thing. And then kind of underneath the hood in the main.ts file, or main.js file, actually, that's when you actually bring in the TanStack router, and we just are using like a code router to just go take slash and point it at that component. And the idea being that, cool, that's great. And there's a whole section in the README on like, if you want to add an about page, here's how you do that. If you want to transition to using file routes, here's how you do that. And there's also other, like, you can ask for TypeScript as a template and get the TypeScript version of that, which you can. So it's exactly the same command line as CRA, but it gives you underneath the hood, like Vite, that's really cool. And then a router, so that because you're going to add that anyway. Come on. At the end of the day, like, you're going to add that.
Is there server rendering out of the box also?
No.
Okay.
You have to add start, which it can do. Now you can actually do that as well. You can add shadcn, you can add start. It's pretty cool, but you have to kind of opt into all that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. You mentioned you had early access to this deprecation page of Create React App. Was there internal discussion about not including Vite as an alternative? Because I feel like this was a surprise to literally everybody on the internet.
Well, it did come out kind of at the end that Vite was sort of kind of not recommended-ish, but it's certainly in there. But yeah, that's been the whole point of contention, is that I can't speak for them, but I guess maybe paraphrasing or something, but like they want you to be on a framework. They want you to have something that's going to manage all of the, as you say, the pedals and the amp and all the rest, right? The image manipulation and the image management, kind of asset management, the data loading, the fast server rendering, all what they would consider like a full way to do React the right way. They want you to be on that. And what is, I think I would say they're missing a little bit, not, whatever, this is my opinion, but like, is like the state of React, I think, was it 70, between 70 and 80% of folks are saying that they're working on spas. Like, they're not doing any server rendering at all, which I kind of get, right? At the end of the day, like, who's doing server rendering? Basically e-commerce and content apps. The other folks, like your intranet, like your enterprise dashboard folks, like that's all spa. That's all making requests off the client, and that's it, So that and folks use CRA as a good starting point for that. Although I'd argue that now Create TS Router app is a better starting point. One thing I kind of missed and I'd totally forgotten about, and I've talked to other folks about it and they've forgotten about it too, was that because we haven't used Create React App in a long time, is the Create React App had this contract with you, which was that it would maintain the Webpack and the React version and all that stuff for you, so you could just boost the version number on your CRA, and you'd get like a whole new setup. And here we are, as offering like a drag and drop, essentially like a replacement for CRA, but we don't do that. Like that's not part of it. Like you create the app, it's done. We're peace out, at least for a little while. We're thinking about like going in and adding a thing because like Astro, where you can just say like, okay, now I made my app. Now I want to add React Query. Can you do it then? Or now I want to add shadcn. Can you do it at that time? So we're looking to add that as well.
Awesome.
As a functionality. But so we're just sort of like this. We make the app and then it's hands off, whereas CRA was much more of this active management system, which I don't even think anybody's really looking for anymore.
So now you're heavily involved with this TanStack project, which, I've never actually got the chance to play with any TanStack projects in depth. It's very sad.
You've done React Query though, right? For sure. No? Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, kind of, but it wasn't me. Like, I say kind of because I wasn't the engineer who introduced this.
Yeah.
So like I inherited a code base that used it, and I did use it, and the caching layer and all of this is amazing. But I never like npm installed it. I don't have an origin story with this, which is a shame because like I see them doing great things, the team, Tanner and so on. I know Tanner, he's a friend. We should maybe get him on the podcast. But like,
for sure,
they're doing great work. But I just never got the chance. So I say this because I'm sure there's listeners who are similar. They're stuck in some Create React app thing, or they're stuck in some Next.js thing, and they so far have not yet, or maybe never will for the next year or so, get the chance to experience the TanStack ecosystem, either TanStack 1, or TanStack Start, or TanStack Query, or TanStack Router. So with that context, could you tell us a little bit about TanStack?
Yeah, so I think Tanner's trying to do something really interesting with TanStack. And there's two dimensions to this that I think are unique. So with the web architecture, like your TanStack router and TanStack start, what he's trying to do is provide, and he has succeeded in this, basically a way of an architecture that allows you to scale all the way from a single page app, literally just like one route, all the way through code router, file router, adding on start, getting things like APIs, and then getting server functions and SSR and SSG, and so you can kind of think of it as like a complexity ramp of a sort, like going from like very simple to the Next.js level of complexity. And the great thing is that you actually don't need to move around your code too much, almost at any point in there. You can just basically kind of add. It's very additive. So it's like, oh, I need API routes. Well, it's not like you need to literally like take your entire application and lift it off of CRA and then drop it into Next.js and try and figure out what to do. No, it's like a smoother progression between those things. I think that is really interesting because I don't think any other framework that I know of has that ability to smoothly ramp between those two things. Next.js is clearly weighted more towards the high-end stuff, and Vite is clearly weighted more towards the literal single page or code router kind of thing. You bring in your own code router. So that's unique. And then the second part of it is it's cross-platform, right? So every library that comes out, including like TanStack Router, which is the core of like a routing system that manages a URL to a particular component, works not just with React, but also with Solid now. And so that's actually like the fast follow that we did with Create TS Router was you could just do -- framework Solid, and now you got a Solid app as opposed to a React app. And it's because pretty much underneath the hood, like the API between those two things is very similar. So I think those are really interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I agree. I've never seen a sort of progressive disclosure framework or progressive feature set framework. You either get like the baby and the bathwater or just the baby usually. And
yeah,
I don't
sure.
know if that example.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah.
But I don't know who even wants the bathwater. Is the bathwater
the bathwater is terrible.
Yeah.
That's why you throw out the bathwater, but you don't want to throw along the baby with it most of the time.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's awesome. So you get to choose like when. So you're telling me you could start an application like some analytics dashboard or something, and this is a single page application or a SPA, as you said. So it starts with a blank page. You see a spinner immediately. And you ship this to production, millions of users. And then suddenly users start complaining, I hate that we start with a spinner. This sucks. I want my data faster. And you could just add SSR, like server rendering, just like that with
you add some configuration files and pretty much you've got SSR. I mean, you're going to have some issues with SSR the way that you would normally. These kind of like applications, sometimes you'll get a library that is looking at window or document like on startup of the library, and that blows up. So you couldn't use it on any SSR framework. So there's certain things there, but it's nowhere near a lift and shift. Yeah, which is what you'd have to do.
That is so cool. Like I don't know if I haven't looked at your latest YouTube videos recently because I was on vacation, but like if there's no content about this ramp, that is wild. Like it's huge if and when it drops.
Yeah, so actually this is one of the things that we're looking at. And so this kind of gets like into the marketing thing of TanStack and all the rest of it. Obviously TanStack as a project needs to self-fund itself, and so we need sponsors. And so what we're looking for now is actually build some content, be it tutorials, example applications, and videos, and text tutorials, and videos and applications that would be at each one of those points in the ramp, as well as have some migration documentation about how to migrate between those things. And then at each level in the ramp, we would work with vendors like, a database vendor and a deployment vendor to basically, once you once you ask for the app, like it's ready to go, and on your single page application, that may mean that you've got like a microservice that has a database attached to it, or you're using like a network database or one of those, yeah. So that to me is like really, really cool, because as a developer, right, I can start to like, ooh, I get the model that I think I want to be in. It's like a spa. It's like a spa mode thing. So it's like mostly a spa, but it's got like some API routes, and then be able to just literally like use a CLI, make the thing. It's all set up, good to go, and then start from there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so incredible. In fact, this is why I use Astro for the most part, because it's the web platform by default. There's nothing, and then you slowly add things with like npx Astro add React or Solid or whatever. I think this is a trend for sure that the web should move more towards, and I'm so happy to hear this work, because I think React has grown over it's been like 12 years now. To I hate to say this, and I think I'll maybe get some hate on social media for it, but I think it doesn't live up to its original value proposition anymore. Like the icon was an atom, right? For a reason. Like you're supposed to be able to add it to an existing web page. Like there you go.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to add it to an existing enterprise application cumulatively.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. You have to start with a framework. And so if you introduce this wrap, I think this is huge even for the enterprise story, because it's like you have a definite pathway to serve a shifting set of users with minimal friction. I think that's really the value proposition.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying. When I was at Walmart for the first time, before I was leading the React team, we actually did this evaluation of React versus Angular. And I was actually on the Angular side of the fence, because I'm like, we're a big company. We need to have standards. And Angular seems like the place where it's all, if you're going to do a big migration, then they've got everything. They've got stores, they've got routing, they've got the whole deal, right? Whereas React is just this like, okay, you've got, this was the value prop at the time. You've got Ember for doing all the data management stuff. Now but you hate the templates. You're just going to bring in React, use Ember, and then that's going to be your application stack. And then, of course, like later on, they were like, oh, well, we got this new Flux idea, for state management and whatnot, and yada, yada. And then, as you say, like React kind of grew out of being like just a template, essentially just a templating engine.
Yeah.
Because very early on, like the class state stuff, I mean, it was really just to like maintain like whether the menu is open or closed.
Yeah.
Like very light. But now it's like hooks and everything else, and it's gotten very complex.
You mentioned TanStack, Create TanStack app, or TanStack in general, is cross-platform. And my ears perked up when you said that, because I understood cross-platform differently before you said Solid.js. And this naturally, I feel like, invites the question, is there a place or a story for TanStack React apps, but with React Native?
A lot of the libraries are fully compatible with React Native.
Wow.
But like a state system, of course, that's going to be compatible. And, React Query or TanStack Query, that's certainly compatible. TanStack Form, which was just released to 1.0 today, definitely has a good play for React Native. They don't do any kind of component stuff themselves. So you're just wrapping React Native components as opposed to wrapping whatever, as opposed to them providing you the wrapped stuff. And so, there's certainly a play there. I don't know about React Router, maybe. Yeah, I admit, like I've been doing a lot with React Native recently, but that's only because I did a lot of stuff on React Native Module Federation, which is this like really tangential, weird area. And React Native is just a hard deal. Like every time I work on it, it bit rots so fast. Like I'll take, the example that was totally working on my machine, and I'll take it on my laptop, and I'll take it over to my machine that I'd use for my Mac Studio that I use to actually record stuff. And it's like, oh, no, you don't have this dependency or whatever, or you don't have this setup. And, oh, gosh. And whereas like web stuff is just so easy. You just kind of like pm install, pm dev, good to go. We're good.
This is literally the experience of everyone I know, except like 2 or 3 like disciples who who just work with React Native. It's so, especially if you're used to the web, man, even just like installing Xcode, you know,
Right?
and
Yeah.
then Xcode has this like confidence to just take over all the code files on your Mac.
Right?
Um,
Yeah, it's binding itself to JSON and all this sort of stuff. You're like, I never want to launch Xcode. Like,
yeah,
I don't care what bindings you have. Don't ever launch Xcode. I spent a lot of
exactly.
time like writing Macintosh software back in the day, and oh, Xcode's
Wow.
horrible.
Um,
Yeesh.
okay, so TanStack has this ecosystem. It's got a router, it's got Start, it's got Create TanStack app, it's got you
Create
mentioned
TS Router app. I should say for anybody listening at home. Like I didn't get Create TanStack app. We are talking. Well, we're trying to talk to the folks that have it, but it's Create TS Router app for TanStack
Create
Router app.
TypeScript router. Oh no,
TS
TanStack router app.
TanStack Router. Yeah.
Um, okay, yeah, no. So it's got this huge ecosystem. It sounds like, responsible almost for the TanStack Create TanStack Router app
Oh yeah.
project, which is awesome. I wanted to ask you. This was your into open source. You just went and looked at an issue, opened a pull request with the docs and went there. This sounds very translatable, yeah, to anyone listening. If you would
Yeah.
say this to someone who wants to go contribute to open source, go find an issue and find the lowest friction, even find like a typo and fix
Right.
it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just to learn how to do PRs, how to actually interface with the maintainers, get feedback on stuff. These are all sort of critical skills, and
Okay.
mine were rusty. I gotta say, like when I did,
Really?
oh yeah, for sure. When I did the Create TS Router stuff, like I built the initial setup of the application and all that, but I'm like, okay, guys, I've got it in a good spot. Like, how do I get this going? And they're like, oh, well, we use this TanStack config system that handles all of the GitHub actions so that we automatically post to npm, and we do conventional commits, and and so just kind of getting that all kind of wired up. It didn't take that long. It took a couple hours, but it was definitely something that I mean, I did GitHub Actions, but for myself, I think everybody's got a different way of doing this. But it was very interesting, and it actually makes me think that I want to go and take that config system and actually apply to a bunch of my projects, because all you got to do like to release something is literally just say like, "Ooh, this is a new feature," and then it bumps the version number and out it goes, kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's pivot. I want to talk about MCP, and then after this topic, we can talk about
yeah.
the combination of TanStack and MCP, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah.
But let's just focus in on MCP, Model Context Protocol. This is not web platform. This is almost AI platform.
Yeah.
Right? This was a thing that Anthropic introduced. But I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to leave this to you because this is your main gift. I'm curious. Let's for those listening who don't even know what this is, can we outline what is the Model Context Protocol and how is it useful?
So Model Context Protocol is a way of providing primarily tools and resources to an AI. So let's say that you're working with Claude, you're probably doing maybe the desktop Claude, which is actually kind of nice, and you're talking to it, but it needs access to things like, I don't know, you could give it really access to anything through this mechanism, like your hue lighting system if you wanted to, or the temperature probe on your fish tank or whatever. And what you can do, so in order to give the AI access to that, what you need to do is give it tools. And those are basically just functions. They're literally functions that have like a schema on them to say like, these are the inputs, and here's the requested values, and then it outputs basically text content back to the AI that can then go and do something with that. So what MCP allows you to do is kind of wrap those tools in a server. There's a couple of different ways to deploy it, but basically I can go and make a little MCP server that would go and expose a tool, get fish tank temperature or whatever to my Claude desktop by just adding it to a configuration file. And now you can actually see it. Like when you pop up Claude Desktop, it like literally shows you like a tools thing. You can click on it and see that, oh, hey, I now have the ability to get a fish tank temperature. And you ask it for, to do something with it. And it will go and get the fish tank temperature. And then like let's say that you also added a set heater thing or whatever. You can actually like make mutations in the real world. You can actually see it work through the process. It'll actually ask you, do you want me to run this tool or not? Here's what we got as output, that kind of thing. But to watch it kind of go through these steps is just so cool. But yeah, that's the basic idea. So there's tools, there's resources. Resources you can kind of think are akin to like a document. Like, so if you have some documents that you need the AI to have access to in order to get better context on things. So again, context model provider or model context provider. Yes, that's it. So you're providing more context by giving it resources and tools to be able to do things.
Interesting. Okay, so let me say back to you what I heard, so that
Sure.
we're all on the same page. Language models have the ability to use tools, and tools are just functions that take input parameters called arguments and return outputs, and the outputs are just text, which is
Generally,
text
yeah.
that the model will read.
Yeah.
I guess the value of these tools is the LLMs themselves can generate the input arguments for the tools, right? So for example,
Right.
you could have a function get temperature, and the input argument is, okay, but which probe? And the LLM will enter like probe 1, probe 2. Cool. Those were accessible. Those were a feature of language models for a long time. Like the Vercel AI SDK, for example, has tool calling, generate object or something.
Right.
And so LLMs can call functions that developers define, but these functions typically need to be hosted somewhere. So they need to be like, so I've actually got like a team of agents that do a bunch of things for me. And by the way, for those listening, agents are when LLMs use tools, when they exercise.
Yeah, right. It's the smallest little distinction there.
Yeah, when LLMs exercise agency and choose the right tool, that's called an agent.
Right.
Anyway, so I've got agents that use tools, but this was actually an open question for me. Like, how do I expose these functions? Where do I? And so what I've opted to do is just create an Astro project and a bunch of like API routes, and those are my tools. Those are the functions that my LLM is instructed to call. Is that how MCP works? Is it just like an exposing layer for functions?
So there's two ways that MCP works, and boy, one is kind of jank, but we'll cover it anyway. So there's standard I/O. So every in a Unix system and a Windows system, every process has 3 different input and outputs. It's got input, standard output, and then standard error. So when you put out error messages, standard error. And the first way that you can do it is you can use standard I/O. So and literally you start up this MCP server on the command line, and it's just waiting literally for like keyboard input from Claude, right? And that keyboard input comes in as probably like a JSON blob, and then you do some stuff and return a JSON blob. And the nicety there is that from a setup perspective, like I launch Claude in turn launches this little application, this little command line application that I wrote, and then it can talk to my stuff. And it's very easy, but at the same time, it's also kind of hard to debug. Like normally we use these standard I/O inputs and outputs for debugging stuff, and here they're being like layered on top. So it's like if you ever do a console log and your MCP server blows up, it's not great. So it's kind of a little crunchy there, a little weird. The other way to do it is to use SSE or server sent events. So in that case, instead of the server just handling standard I/O, it instead launches a web server. Like you can couple this with Express or any other of the other ones, and then you give it like a /SSE route, and then you actually get like a full-on like JSON payload coming in, and then you send it back out, and it looks very much like conventional HTTP HTTPS stream. Although it is a stream, it's a long-running connection, which I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of this way and that way about it, because I mean we've been very successful in the stateless APIs, and I don't really know why just giving an AI tools would require having statefulness. Like it seems like you should just be able to invoke a tool, goes off, does its stuff, and then sends it back, and then that's it. Maybe the problem is the long running part of it. But I've been talking to a friend of mine who wants to scale up MCP at scale, and it's like, do we need to like run a unique server for each person, each session? It's a little vaguely defined, but I do like the underlying idea. Like the underlying idea of standardizing how you do tools, how you do resources. There's a couple other things that it standardizes on. I think that's cool. Like the transport mechanism, I think could probably use a little work.
So I'm not understanding the server side of it. Because what is MCP? So is MCP just a specification? Okay, so it's
specification of the messages and how those And then there's a transport layer. So that's also, I guess specified. And the two variants of your transport layer are standard IO or SSE.
Cool. Is
Yeah.
there a framework for this? Like, can I npm install MCP?
Yeah. They've got a nice little starter kit with some good examples in there about how to use it with TypeScript and all that. And I think there's also a couple of, or at least one that I know of, Fast MCP is another server variant. And I think the Anthropic one comes with both a server that can run on standard IO or SSE, and also a client. So you can actually write a Node app that is a client of MCP servers. So I think that's kind of cool too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is this now only usable with Claude Desktop?
No. That's the cool thing, right? So MCP is like really like sort of opened up. Like now you can use it with Zed if you're a Rust fan, or you can use it with Cursor. I think the Cursor integration is really nice, and also Windsurf. Windsurf integration is a little bit more kind of edit this JSON file, but Cursor has this really nice like dialogue. You can just go and say, okay, I want to add this server. You run this command, and there's a whole bunch of off-the-shelf servers. There's servers for Postgres, right? That'll go and give in this case, the agent that's installed inside Cursor access to your Postgres database. And that is fantastic because you think about it, like, yeah, that's really cool, right? Because now this thing has a live access to my tables, my schemas, everything else. And now there's none of this hallucination thing like, ooh, if I knew that there was a user table, I would imagine that it would have fields like this, that kind of thing. It's like, no. I'm going to go get the schema for user. I'm going to know exactly what those fields are, and I'm going to write the SQL just for that. So that, and there's a lot of these. I think there's like an awesome MCP repo that has a whole list of these various servers.
And
No,
go ahead.
Well, the one that wasn't there, that I haven't seen anybody do, but now Create TS Router app has done it, is that now we have an MCP server baked into one of these application scaffolding systems. In this case, Create TS Router app. And so you can use PMPX Create TS Router app at latest --MCP. You can put that in your Cursor. And now when you ask it to make an application, you can literally say, hey, I want a TanStack start application. It'll go and scaffold that in the local directory and then continue on from there and start making changes. So it can build TanStack start. It can build for React, and it can build solid apps. It can go and integrate stuff like ShadCN. It's just really cool. And just yesterday we added an entire AI chat example. So you can just ask for an AI chat example, creates a new page. It's got an Anthropic connection. You use the Anthropic AI API, and you can start chatting with it. And so one of the cool things you can do is, like, I experimented this in Cursor. I said, okay, give me a TanStack application that has an AI chat system built into it that really is obsessed with Pokemon and themed in purple. And, chomp, 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 chomp. Later, it was like at each one of the steps, and it was really cool. It ran my new app, and there it was, like a full-on AI chat example, just literally in my my browser that I had done anything on. Like it made all the modifications and everything. It was really cool.
How did it get the API keys to do the inference?
Well, okay, I actually have my Anthropic AI key. This is the one thing I had to do, is like remove the env local that kind of would override the Anthropic AI key to nothing. I ended up like going in and just removing that, so that would use the one that I have just baked into my environment.
That is jaw dropping.
It's really cool.
People didn't see. Yeah, they didn't see me as you were talking. And maybe they're listening on audio and won't see us at all. But my jaw was very far away from the rest of my eye level. That's bananas, man. So
right, it's kind of like V0 or Bolt, but in Cursor.
Well, not even in Cursor. It's like V0 or Bolt.new, but local.
Yeah. Whoa. Right.
So do I understand correctly that MCP executes locally? So Claude, whatever. Okay, so it would all just work locally.
Or you can run an MCP SSE server on some point, because that's a URL. right? You could literally like, I don't know, if you wanted
Right.
to have some, I don't know,
But by and
back-end
large,
maintenance thing.
these are localhost URLs.
In general, yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like there's a startup idea to build a repository of MCP servers, no? Like, where you just get a bunch of URLs to like things that can integrate with, like, for example, Adobe could have an MCP server to create things with Photoshop.
Oh,
Use
totally.
Photoshop as a tool.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's where I think like the next, at least on the API side of the house or the standard side of the house, the next wave of all of that back end stuff is to come up with some formalization of how we structure data, how we give access to data, how we, do the jots to get back to the earlier in the conversation, for AIs, such that my UI of my, I don't know, delta.com or whatever, my or whatever, becomes really more the API for the AI, so that my agent, like I can say, hey agent, I need to get from Portland to, Bay Area, make it happen. And it's going to go off. It's not going to hit the UI. Heck with that. That's nuts. It should go off and hit the API and like, oh, I've got this standardized way of getting, there's a standard protocol now for like what the return data should look like and what the request data should look like. And they should do all that stuff. I don't understand why people are like, oh, we got to go and make AIs understand like, checkboxes and stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that's bananas. Like what that, like, you're literally like, you're wasting hydro dam time to like figure out like, oh wait, this is a select box or whatever. Like that's crazy.
How do you include authentication information with MCP? Like if I wanted to build an assistant to go and book me a flight, and I wanted to make this accessible over MCP to like everybody, such that you install this in Cursor and you just tell Cursor chat like, hey, by the way, I'm vibe coding right now, but I need to book a flight tomorrow. Can you do it?
Right.
How does it know like how to do it for me as an authenticated?
Like the only thing I can think of is it would be the HTTP/HTTPS protocol for SSE. You're not, because if you're running this thing locally, like you're kind of implicitly authed, right? You're letting this thing run anything on your machine. So there's a next level auth there. But when it comes to like a service, I would just think that it would be, some bearer token in the header, just standard stuff. And, maybe there would be extra tool. And so it would be kind of, because you can get metadata. These are self-reflecting things. Like so MCP includes a way for the host MCP client, might be that in Claude Desktop or Cursor or whatever, to go and say, what are the tools that you have available to me? And that would obviously, I think, be public, right? Maybe just metadata about the tools, right? That's something bad. But then as part of that, like maybe there would be a way to like log in and log out and get back a jot. And then, I guess, well, actually, no, maybe the jot is just a parameter to the request. Like once you invoke the tool, because you can describe, here are the parameters, and one of them might be the authorization token. And you put a little describe block in there saying, put your authorization token in here, and get the authorization back from login. Actually, I'm intrigued now. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do this with, but I'm going to do this.
Nice. Yeah. I also, to your earlier point about SSE or server sent events being the sort of protocol mode MCP works over.
Transport layer.
Transfer. Yeah, I think I can understand it because it's really a dialogue layer, right? Because like the user sends a prompt, the LLM creates some structured output, sends it back, and the LLM may either send it back or then chain tools. This is also probably a thing, and that's why it can't just be like request response, because the responses end, but you may need to chain tools and then send back some data.
I mean, as long as if you have some implicit state within that SSE session, sure. But I mean, I would imagine that maybe the parameters would be the state that you pass on from one tool call to the next would be encoded in that. But whatever.
Yeah, it's probably looking at all the history. Okay, so I can now run npx create ts router app space directory name space dash mcp.
Oh, not even directory name, just dash mcp, and there you go. Okay. It just works within the current directory of whatever your host app is.
This is so exciting, man. Okay, so if I'm gonna try to run this right now. I'm not gonna share my. I'm not going to share my screen because there's people listening, but create TS router app dash dash MCP. And okay,
It should list tools.
it says 404, but I think it's because I run npx create. It's npm create. So
Not space dash dash MCP.
I don't know, man. I'm running that. Nothing's happening.
Oh no.
What I have is npx space create dash ts dash router dash.
Oh no. Okay. TS router is all one word. TS router dash app.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad we made that distinction for the listeners here.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so something's happening. And then what does it like expect?
Does it say that list tools? And it's got like a bunch of tools on there?
No, it's just processing.
That's weird.
I'm on an M1. I don't know. It did this thing when you do npx, right? Okay to proceed, and then I said yes, and then it's just there's no output now.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll maybe circle back to this and see what happens. But I'm excited. So you're telling me, Jack, that I can literally create something like literally anything. Really, it's like Bolt and V0, but locally.
Yeah.
And it will autonomously pull in ShadCN if I ask, and Tailwind if I ask, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean the ShadCN thing, it's got an add-on for that, so it'll automatically do that for you. But yeah, in addition, like let's say that you want to go and do image manipulation or something like that, it would then follow on subsequently to do its own thing, to go and PMPX, npm install some image manipulation library or whatever you need to do to get whatever your request is. So yeah, at the point at which we've created the app, it's basically hands off. It's like at that point, your agent inside of Cursor is on its own. It's going to be, it'll list all the files, try and figure out where everything is. And so then another thing that actually is pretty interesting is that folks are starting to we inject .cursor rules into the actual application that we build. So that's one thing.
What's the significance of that file?
Cursor. So yeah, it's basically a set of markdown hints and suggestions. Like we use PMPM as opposed to NPM, and we use ShadCN for the UI, and here's how you install components. And it's all just agent helper stuff to basically say, okay, this is the standards, these are how you do it. And so that it customizes it's working to your particular project. So then
this is just a markdown file, kind of like a README to a developer, but to an AI.
Yeah, to an AI. Yeah. Cool, right? And this is starting to become more popular. And I think the reason being that we all saw that LLMs know, as an example, ShadCN used to be ShadCN -UI as the name of the project, and then they changed it to ShadCN. And I would notice that LLMs would be like, oh no, I want to run ShadCN UI. And it's like, no, that's not the new thing. That's new hotness. You got to use just ShadCN. And so what the ShadCN guy did was he actually put on ShadCN specifically for LLMs. This is not the droid you're looking for. You need to run this command instead. And you can actually watch the agent get the feedback, go, oh, okay, I guess I gotta do this thing over here now. Yeah, it's trippy. It's really trippy. And it's great.
That's incredible. Okay, so unfortunately, this command just isn't working.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out offline.
But in theory, this sounds amazing. And also, I must thank you because I'm speaking at a conference, React Paris, at the end of this month. And I was asked to talk about AI and React apps, and I had a plan. I had a plan, but now it's going to change in a big way to highlight.
Let's get it working for you because I'm excited about it.
That's incredible.
It's super alpha feature, but I just wanted to see if it could work, and now I'm like, oh wow, this is actually a huge enabler. And it's a huge win for TanStack because, as I say, it's a sponsorship-driven project. So the idea being that if we go to a project, somebody like a company that's doing on databases or something like that, and we say, hey, listen, we can add your integration to our list of integrations, so folks can just pick it. Cool. That's neat. That's interesting. I mean, Astro can do that kind of thing. Cool. But we also have this AI angle, so that if somebody asks for, an application and it needs a database, it's going to go and use your database to go and build out that application. And as you say, this is Bolt or V0 just locally, and it just works.
That's incredible. And you're
Well,
not at the
just works
behest.
except for you, but like it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not at the behest of a foreign company, right? A foreign, and like this is all local.
Yeah.
This is, you're never going to run out of like tokens. You're never going to, um, you're
Well,
never
no.
going.
Okay, hold on. So, I mean, the agent that you are that's invoking those tools is still like a Claude or a Sonnet or one of those, right?
Yeah, but what I mean is like if you go on bolt.new, you're allowed a certain
Oh, right. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
allowed a certain number of messages after which you either pay, which is fine, or you make a Stackblitz account. Or in the case of V0, and again, this is not shaded, this is just how they work. If you go on v0.dev, type in a prompt, before you can even generate something, you have to make an account, you know? And with this MCP, like you're paying for Cursor, but even with Cursor, you don't actually pay for, it doesn't use your OpenAI or Anthropic account. You just pay for Cursor Pro,
Mm-hmm.
and it just does the thing. Which to me is like way more liberating because I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get
One bill. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly, one bill. Now, is there? So it's dash dash MCP with no arguments to this option.
No. Okay. I'm gonna like go over to Twitter and like because we're talking on Twitter and like
Yeah, that's fine. It's dash dash MCP with no options. But do you
No.
think in the future
Oh.
there may be the possibility to add as options various MCP servers that enable more things? For example, dash dash MCP that already gets you into MCP mode. But if I add as a value to this, here's the URL to my MCP endpoint that exposes Postgres access to my databases. That then the agent will also have that context and use it natively with this one step.
I don't think I need to do that because you can add multiple servers in your cursor definition to multiple things. So it could be, okay, so I need to make a TanStack app first. Cool. I'm going to use, Jack's MCP thing for that. And then at that point, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm going to go off to my Postgres integration MCP server, and I'm going to talk to the database that I just created right then, kind of thing. So it's going to pick the tools as it needs, and you can just keep on adding more integrations into your environment, and it'll just keep on becoming more robust in terms of what it can do.
That is so awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm literally, it's. I was going to say it's rare, but this has never ever happened ever, where I have been in the middle of a podcast episode and been like, man, I have to play with this thing that they're building.
Why? Yeah, but they're like king AI, dude. I mean,
No, but like it's a product. It's like usually we have like these CEOs, founders, whatever, building great products. We had Paul Klein from BrowserBase and Aya Bachman from Fashion and all these cool people. But the thing is, I get to use their stuff beforehand, and talk about it. I didn't even know about this dash dash MCP now. So a little update for you. Dash dash MCP dash SSE runs.
Okay. Yeah, you might be looking. I had a guy who tried it out, and he couldn't get the MCP variant, the standard I/O version to work, which is what the MCP is. But he could get the SSE version to work, and then all you got to do is go into Cursor and run the. And instead, it's got an option for like standard I/O versus SSE, and then you just give the URL, which is like your localhost, I don't know, 8080/SSE or something.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
you can
good
set
to
the
know.
port, whatever you want. I don't know. You might need to like run it in the target directory because I don't.
I'm doing that. No, I'm running this outside of Cursor, just an iterm2. That's
Right,
also
but the directory that you need to run the server from might need to be the directory that you want to put your projects into.
No, I'm in that.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Yeah,
It's just I think I've got like Z shell or something. I don't know. Maybe it's a shell thing where standard IO. I don't know, but the SSE is working, which is great. And
great.
Yeah,
Woohoo.
I'm so hyped, man.
Okay, so you saw the tools and everything, and it's actually working for you.
No, but I can. I wasn't planning on sort of pair programming. I love it. This is where we're going. Now, walk me through it. Actually, for the listeners also, because I think there's going to be people literally following along with this. So you add a new MCP server, and this is in Cursor's settings, right? So you give it.
There's specifically cursor settings, right? There's this whole, there's all the VS Code settings, and then there's this optional panel for cursor settings, of which one of the tabs is MCP. There's a big old button, add an MCP server. Yeah. It's got name. It's got the transport protocol, which would be SSE or standard IO. And then in the case of SSE, you're just giving it the local endpoint
Awesome.
HB
So I did
localhost, blah
that.
blah blah. Yeah.
I did that, and I have tools. I have list TanStack React add-ons, create TanStack React
There
application.
you go.
That's
Now you can go
awesome.
over to your make sure that you're in your agent mode
Okay.
on the panel.
Yeah.
That's critical. And then just say, hey, make me a TanStack app that has an AI chat panel or something. I don't know, whatever.
Jack,
Whatever you want
you're
to do.
killing me. Like I told you in the beginning that you were like a hero of mine from your YouTube and all of this, and like, geez Louise, like he stopped doing YouTube stuff and switched to OSS and is already like,
Oh no! I haven't stopped doing YouTube
I
stuff.
mean not stopped, but you said you're moving to OSS.
Yeah,
That's
and I
incredible.
think
All right.
it's like a cool value prop, right? It's like I can help TanStack go and promote some stuff by having this channel. So it's this virtuous relationship kind of thing.
It's incredible. All right, so now I'm in cursor. Let's go to agent mode, which is composer. Right? Yeah,
Right,
composer,
yeah,
agent mode. Make me a Winamp clone that plays MP3s.
in TanStack. I would say in TanStack just to make sure that
Interesting, because that's the trigger word.
yeah, because
All
it's
right.
gonna like when do I need? There's always a question of when it wants to invoke those tools. Maybe it would. I don't know.
And now I'm gonna use Claude 3.7 Sonnet,
Okay.
and it's gonna. Wow, it's actually doing it. Okay, so it's calling MCP tool list TanStack React
Right.
add-ons.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
gonna
I'm just
figure out
gonna.
what the add-ons that it should add on to the build.
This is so cool.
And then
Wow,
it'll go,
yeah. So it says now I'll create a new TanStack application with ShadCN with store for state management,
Nice.
TanStack query for API calls potentially. If we need to fetch music metadata, is what it says because it's a music player. Whoa,
I love it. I love it. I love
that's
it.
incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna keep watching this agent do stuff, and then at the end we'll see. We'll circle back. But okay,
Has it created a local directory with like the app in it?
Winamp Clone. It has,
Yeah,
yeah.
there
Oh
you go.
my goodness, and it's
So,
got
yeah, my job is
cursor-
done at this point. Now it's all agent.
Wow, it's got cursor rules, and it's like creating stuff as we go. Wow,
Yeah.
man, this is
It's
incredible.
going to give you your deltas and all that. It's really fun.
That's okay. So I can't wait to see what comes out here.
I know. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little modification. I've really been enjoying lately just like jamming with Claude. Like I'm like,
Do you mean vibe coding? Is
yeah,
that-
totally vibe coding. Like it's just like, oh, I want like some of some of the examples were a little bit rough. Like my forms example was literally just like a white page with like one input on it it's just wasn't pretty. I want it to be pretty, And so I'm like, okay, Claude, make it pretty. And like it literally like go, 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 go. And then bang. It's like, whoa, actually that's really cool. And then you can kind of, I usually do it like a little screen. I'll take a screenshot of whatever I created. I'm like, come on, that's a little ugly. Let's move this over here. Let's move that over there. And oh my God, it is just so much fun to like just vibe code with it. I did this one just recently. I kind of obsessed by guitars lately. And I used Leonardo to go and make a whole bunch of guitar images. And then I used
What's Leonardo?
Leonardo.ai. It's just another image creator. It's,
Okay.
equivalent of like a Mid-Journey. I just find it a little bit, whatever. I like the optimization, the controllability. And so I created that. And then I had like a kind of an e-commerce demo app using these guitars and just to show off view transitions because I really wanted to get into like the new React view transition stuff. And it was just so cool to be like, okay, let's do a little glassmorphic thing here. Let's, and it just works. And you're like, oh man, you're only limited by your own creativity nowadays, which is cool.
That is cool. That is so cool. And so I'm watching this thing as you're talking on my side screen here. I've got
How's it going?
It's doing this thing where it writes code, and so it just created a component called audio player.
Nice.
I love it, and it gets ESLint errors, and it's
and it fixes them.
Like, fixing
it fixes them on the fly. It's amazing. Yeah, he writes code better than I do.
Yeah, so it's like
and
as
I
an
kind of heavy
engineer.
linter in there too. Like the lint rules are a little heavy for me, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean you're not the one dealing with the lint rules, so
I kind of go with whatever the team does. I'm
I
that
mean
guy.
you're not the one dealing with any issues that come up.
It's it's doing the work. Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. I keep hearing like AI is going to take our jobs. We're all cooked. I've heard this, but this is the first time I like watch it happen. That's incredible. Because like even Bolt and V0, like they're nice toys, and I'll probably get some hate for saying this, but I have not seen them create something end-to-end production ready yet. And maybe that's just a skill issue on my part, to be honest. But watching Cursor, it's just me, man. It's like it's replicating my thought process. It's replicating exactly what I would do.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little scary that way, right?
Yeah.
But no, it definitely, like I did this experiment with like the purple, like the Pokemon and purple thing, and its tailwind was not great. Its tailwind, there were some issues. I think it was like putting like almost white text on an almost white background, and you're like, come on. So again, it's like it's just there's an iteration here. You just like screenshot it, be like, come on, bro, do better.
Yeah.
Do better. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I see the issue. I'll fix that for you, boss.
Man, this is incredible.
It's a very eager junior engineer. I think that's the way that
Yeah.
folks are talking about, like Devin and all that. Very eager junior engineers.
Yeah. But these junior engineers have CUDA cores, not human brains, which means they level up way faster.
Yeah.
I love it. I think, okay, so now that we're here on this topic, you built this, you've watched it work, I watched it work. Full disclosure, I'm a little bit scared. And I've never ever been scared of being replaced by AI because I know my stuff. And to be honest with you, I'm scared about being replaced by AI in the context of like front end stuff. And this is why I don't do front end anymore. I haven't done front end in a long time. Like I've been doing a lot of Kubernetes, a lot of DevOps, and a lot of AI. And I feel confident enough that I'm not going to be replaced in the grand scheme of things by like AI work and DevOps work. But front end work is like, dude, like what's your take here? Like, I think we can agree that it's changed in a profound way, front end work. Is the market going to get smaller? Like, how do you, like, in response to all these potential grifters saying, hey, AI is going to take your job and whatever, having built this MCP feature and watched it execute, what's your take?
My take is that we're going to get a lot of more jobs when it comes to like successful-ish vibe coders who've gone and built using like V0 or Bolt, something that they can go and get some startup capital or some angel funding to go and actually productionalize. And then it's going to be up to real coders to kind of come in and make it real, like actually go and do the work, fix it up, make it happen. And I do think actually, it's interesting. It would be interesting to see how it flows because I've noticed recently that I've been doing a lot of stuff where it gets almost a little bit too aggressive. It's like, oh wow, you changed a lot. And now I've got to like go and kind of pick through the nuts and bolts to kind of see what you did to like, and I didn't ask for that much kind of stuff. I feel a little bit out of control with it, like the application isn't as, I don't feel that's the same sense of control as if I'd written every line of code by myself. That's where I feel with it. So I think we're going to find a nice equilibrium in there.
So it can't replace people because like we have specific, like very highly detailed, specific, high fidelity ideas of things we want to do and we go do them. But it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is their ideas are more abstract, almost too abstract. They do work that is at this point not as specific as we want and not in the exact way that we want. And by we, I mean like the consumers, the customers. And that's why like you're going to have people just do some abstract stuff that kind of gets there, but you still need like the real human experts to finish the job.
Yeah. Like if I'm a person at Nike, right? Nike's got very specific goals for what they want to see on the screen. They're not looking for you to go and like, oh, I've got this new idea for a product detail page. I'm just going to whip this thing together in V0 and throw it out the door. That's never going to work in that kind of company. So the more that you've got a company that cares about like control over, like they use Figma a lot, and they're looking for like control over like the drop shadow and all that kind of stuff. I think the tools are going to be less, certainly these kind of very high-end generative tools where you're asking to build the whole app are going to be less valuable. Although you can, I would say, give it like an image from Figma and say, make this. And hopefully it gets somewhat close,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of make this, my Winamp clone is done, the music player.
Oh, cool. How's it going to get music? I don't know.
So it's really awesome. So it exposed the server on port 3000. It is indeed built with TanStack.
Okay.
And it looks like Winamp. You know what? And For those listening on audio, I'm sorry, but I will share my screen here.
Okay.
Because you've got to see this, Jack. This is what it looks like. So we
Oh
and
my God, that does look like Winamp from back in the day. Oh my, that was like the unskinned Winamp, and then everybody
yeah,
would like, "This is my alien skin" kind of stuff. But this is like the classic gray Windows look.
yeah, and the cool
But
thing is,
it's high fidelity, man.
yeah, and I can now like create another prompt and say, okay, now add the green skull guy. You know the
Totally.
Winamp theme.
Yeah. I would go. Oh yeah, right. I would go and like screenshot it and be like, "Here, I want. This is what you've got." Because I don't think that's the one thing I don't think it needs some context around like
Yeah.
where it is today. That's why I give it screenshots.
And so you wondered how it gets music. Turns out it created a load MP3 button
Oh,
that is actually functional. And so you click on load MP3 and you choose a MP3 file, and it actually just appears here in the playlist. So I added these two. Um,
you just happen to have MP3 files lying around?
well, these are actually previous episodes of the Contagious Code
Oh, I
podcast.
see. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's fine. Yeah, it's funny actually. We got off Sirius radio,
Okay.
and just recently, and one of the things that our cars have that I never even experimented with before is like we have a USB port that you can put a drive into, and so I've been like looking around for MP3s. It's so weird because
Yeah.
like we've been so long like on Spotify and on Apple Music and whatever, and it's like I don't have any MP3s anymore.
Yeah, they've taken over. But
Right?
I think that's so cool. But it didn't add support for the play button, so I can't actually play music, but I can load music, which
Oh
is
yeah, just give it a screenshot and say, "Hey, dude, you forgot play." Duh.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
This is
and it'll do it. I mean, it's gonna just load it. I think I think you can make an audio stream in memory.
I'm
Just load from a
so
file. Yeah.
impressed. I'm actually mind blown by what I just saw.
It was
And I think-
mostly Claude. Come on. It was, it was a
But
little
it's-
bit of us.
But this, Jack, this is, I think, this like we live in a bubble of senior engineers and stuff, and I think we underestimate how much or how little the vast majority of us get exposed to these kinds of things, specifically things like model context protocol. And what you've shown us here is once you have the right dots, then you can connect them in something
Yeah.
so extremely powerful. Because this is nothing more than connecting. You said yes, Claude did most of it, but this is nothing more than connecting MCP and Cursor and Claude, which if you don't know about MCP, which ideally after listening to this episode you do, not you, the listeners, then you can connect those. But like, why I'm so impressed is because I feel so many people just don't have that exposure. They don't get to do that because they're working 9 to 5s and then they have families, and some would say they have the right priorities, But this is bananas, man. That's crazy.
I will say that's one of the cool things that has been an outcome of there's so many cool things that have come with the YouTubing thing. Just meeting great people like you. It's it's been fantastic for that. But also the fact that you got to kind of come up with a new topic every week means that you're constantly in search of cool new things. And I think I saw MCP like a week after it released, and I was like, oh, this is the bomb. Like I was telling local friends of mine, like, oh my God, this is the thing. Like this is it. This is when we actually have a standard for tools that we can use across AI LLMs. Different LLMs will do it, and it gives you access. It's got a couple different things. It's a little janky, but it's on the right path. And so I did some stuff back then. Did a video on it. I think everybody's sort of like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then like now, it's definitely it's gotten a lot of legs. You go to like the awesome MCP GitHub README, whatever, Markdown, and it's pretty vast, like the amount of MCP stuff that folks have done. But as I say, nobody was doing like an application scaffolding system. I'm like, are you kidding me? That just seems like a no brainer. Like literally, just give the AI a tool to go and make my app. Done.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the reason nobody did that was because they just didn't know, right? They didn't have the exposure that you have, exposure to things, which is so extremely cool. I have two follow-up questions here. One is how can, outside of like dropping all their career choices and becoming a content creator, how can people stay in this loop? How can people like keep up with cool stuff, kind of like you do?
That's a really good question. I just have a bunch of sources that and subscriptions. I use RSS. I use, I'll go off and go to the, React, Reddit, and that sort of stuff. But and a lot of folks come to me with ideas, which is good and bad. Like, a lot of folks are just like, oh, I want the speed lane to becoming a big, OSS brand. I don't want to build community and all that. I just want to go and talk to an influencer, have them make a video, and boom, done. And I think there's a lot of value in that progressive, like, creating community thing, because then the community becomes advocates, and the community like helps you build a better API and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's a lot of value in that. But that's, I don't know. I mean, in fact, actually, I've been thinking recently about doing some agent stuff on my own, and primarily around looking for content, going over dev2, and just like, I would love to be able to wake up in the morning and be like, Jack, here's your summary of all the cool stuff that happened yesterday, or all the cool articles. Here's some really interesting things, you might vibe with, that kind of thing. That could be really cool. But I gotta say, genuinely though, like, there's never like a real lack of cool stuff going on in the front end. That's what keeps me in the game. Is like, I'm an old dude, man. I'm like, 56. It's crazy. And I've been doing this since I was 13. So that's a long time to be doing one thing of coding. But when everybody's like, well, are you going to retire? I'm like, why? Like, it's so cool. Like, why would I have retired before the AI boom? I mean, there's such amazing stuff going on. And like, there's all kinds of ways to use coding that isn't the web. Like, I use coding to go and, like, I've got a movie poster in my office that is run by a Raspberry Pi that has, like, adjustable LED lighting on it. And it's just because I just having fun. Just want, like, why not? Like, it's fun, right? And you can do it for all kinds of stuff. So I don't think I'll ever stop coding, and primarily because it's just so much fun.
Yeah. You have, that's beautiful, first of all. I want to be like you when I'm 56. 56?
56. Crazy.
That's incredible. No, but it's interesting because I got the same question. I was on a podcast. I was on the Tech Commute with Jason Torres, like literally hours before this, and he asked me the same question, and I did the same thing you did, which is go to like sources of information. But in the middle of my answer, I was like, wait a second. Like, you just said this also, Jack. You said there's never been a shortage of really cool stuff.
No.
I think from now on, I'm going to start answering this question, not by showing where the stuff happens or citing sources, but instead telling people how they can glean signal from noise, or even more so, like, how they can get over their own distractibility. Because I think that's really what people want, is like, hey, I open my browser, I open my computer, I open something, and I want to go on Reddit and read how Trump is bad versus like discover MCP. Like you said, there's no.
Oh, dude, I'm so there. So a couple of things, like Raycast. Do you use Raycast? You do?
Do I use? I don't use. So I use the Spotlight in Mac OS, and it does the job for me. I've heard people trying to evangelize Raycast, but every time I ask for a demo, I just see like a search bar, and I'm like, okay, but Spotlight does this.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I don't.
So a lot of the stuff that I've baked into like Raycast, there's a new one, like there's a cutting distraction mode, but like they'll do things like actually intercept particular pages. So if you want to be in coding mode and try and go to Twitter, it'll be like, nope, thank you though. Yeah,
wow.
So it's really nice. I need to use it more. But yeah, the ability to like get that, because I mean, obviously OSS has like the distraction thing, but it's not as granular. You really want something that's like, no, you cannot go to Reddit and look for, that kind of, whatever it is. And I totally get that. But I did want, like, actually, you mentioned something like really early on about fast content and fast thinking. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Is this the difference between fast and slow thinking? And I think as a society, certainly in the US, we become very addicted to like gut reaction, fast thinking. Like I'm gonna see something and immediately I'm gonna no, bad, kind of thing. As opposed to giving myself that time to like, ooh, people make things for a reason. this is obviously made for a reason. I'm going to actually spend the time thinking about how I would use this, thinking about the approach. And the one that I keep on going back to is like Shad CN. My initial visceral response, that fast thinking response to Shad CN was, ugh, they're copy and pasting code into my code base. That's dumb. It's bad. And then like, as I actually looked at the code later on and I got time to think about it, I was like, oh, I kind of get this. Like, this is good. Like this, but giving yourself that time to think slowly is critical. Like, it's not just about distraction. It's about actually spending the time to, and when people ask you for your take on something, don't just give it. Be like, hey, what are you going to tell me? Cool. If you're going to tell me something and ask me for my take, understand, I might not give you my take for like a day because I need some time to sit with it. I need some time to think about things. Like, as an example, people will tell me, oh, how about this great, project I got going on? I'm like, ooh. And on its face, it looks really cool or whatever. I'm like, my initial reaction is like, that's neat. And then I'll think about it later. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Adobe could go and eat this market like in 2 seconds because it's so close or whatever. Yeah, it's an example, right? But that's that. You got to give yourself that slow time to percolate on stuff. And I'm hoping that in a way that's what my channel is doing for folks is like, I'm not giving you the hot take. I'm not giving you, hey, I just read this article. I'm just going to tell you my immediate response to this article because I think those are worthless. Myself, at least for me, my initial hot takes on things are absolutely worthless. But if I give myself a day or two to sit with it and to like experiment with it, then that's a better take. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning into is like trying to be the slow thinking content.
Yeah. Yeah, there's beauty in the nuance. I fully agree.
Yeah.
And then I fully, that's also how I try to run this podcast, which is why like we take our time with these episodes. We talk in detail.
Yeah.
I'm not just like rapid fire, which is also why, Jack, I have a hard time. I get asked sometimes at work to do like executive summaries. Hey, can you just give me 5 bullet points on this thing? Don't think too much. Literally, they say sometimes don't think too much about it. I just want quick bullet points. And I'm just like, but why?
They're worthless.
That's like asking for French fries, but you want to be healthy, It's so
yeah.
I don't.
It's mental French fries. Is that fast response to stuff that hot take.
Exactly, and I want to serve steak. So I so appreciate that you
Tenderloin.
said that. In fact, like people, I don't know, nobody has actually gotten mad at me at work for this, but they'll ask me. They'll be like, "Hey, Tejas, can you summarize all of this developer feedback and give us a report, a point of view?" And I say yes, and then I spend the entire day doing that.
Yeah.
Because
that's what it takes.
Exactly.
And people underestimate like the value of taking a while to get it done and done right. I mean, as long as you're not like half the day on Reddit, right? There's a lot of value, and you can see when people do work. You're like, ooh, I appreciate the work that went into this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really like taking a bite out of a strawberry and throwing it away instead of like getting every ounce of juice from that fruit,
Yeah.
Okay, my final question to you today, Jack, and honestly, I could keep going, but out of respect for everyone's time, is you're exposed to such edge things. You have a deep understanding of these edge things. This podcast has had a season of really awesome, talented, gifted, smart entrepreneurs on it, founders, whatever. Well, you say that in jest, but like you haven't founded a company yet, other than like Blue Collar Coder and your YouTube stuff.
Yeah,
you haven't.
I mean, dude.
I'm curious. Like, do you feel like an entrepreneurial itch? You mentioned this, like, I want to wake up in the morning and get this Dev 2 summary type thing. That sounds like a great product. Have you thought about, I want to maybe be a technical founder and build a cool product or something like this, especially now that you have all this like knowledge that a lot of people don't have because that's literally your job?
I would want to do it for the right reasons. And to me, the right reasons are not money. Like, I'm not looking, I was literally talking to somebody yesterday about this, where I think America has, at least perceptually speaking, has over-indexed on this idea of like everybody just wants to make $1 billion and have 18 Lambos and all this sort of stuff. I drive a Subaru. I'm totally happy with my Subaru. Thank you very much. I own my house. I like my house. I like my neighbors. I don't need 10 houses. I don't need 10 cars. I don't need my kids out of school. Like, I'm good. Like I would like to be able to retire with some kind of sense of, stability and all that sort of stuff. But that's really it. So it's not the money aspect of it that would drive me towards entrepreneurial stuff, but it is the want to do something that's that has a longevity to it. And I think that's what I'm getting from the TanStack stuff, is that it's not just like these little dinky side projects here and there. It's like, I got this thing, create TS router app that actually like people are putting up PRs on, and I have to review those. And, I'm essentially the product manager on this thing, as well as being the primary coder. So it's like, and that feels good. It feels like I'm creating something. Now, if that turns out to be a driver for a company and money, well, okay. I don't think TanStack's going to do that, but I mean, certainly I could maybe see doing that. I don't know. I'm a terrible business guy, though. Like, people always ask me, like, oh, can you negotiate the price of a dedicated video or something like that? I'm like, so bad. I'm so bad with that. Like, I just don't have that gene. Like, I'm very empathetic. I really want people. I really like, if I like the company I'm working with, I want to give it to them for free, to be honest. But it's like, I need to be able to, eat. So, there's that. But like, I don't have that kind of killer instinct. And I think, so yeah, maybe if I can, like, partner with a business manager who really does have that instinct and can make me feel, keep me feeling good about not being the guy that does that, then that's possible. Sure.
That's an awesome take. I feel like a bunch of SF tech bros just died inside a little bit during that. But that's, Jack, that's exactly where I am. And like, DataStax pays my bills.
I think a lot of people are that way, to be honest. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the guys, a dear friend of mine, actually in SF, I was in SF, and he told me, hey, I think you're wasting your life. I was like,
What?
Why? Because you'd be a great technical founder of a SaaS product. And I was like, but I don't. Okay, that's awesome, but I'm happy, man.
Yeah.
And also, like, we're putting away money, we're investing, we have a retirement. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
it's interesting, this idea that if you're not a billionaire with 18 Lambos, you're not really living. But that said, I will attest to a couple of things you said. One, your lack of business acumen. You gave us a video for free, and by us I mean DataStax, which was very nice. It wasn't published.
Unreleased video for free.
Yeah, it wasn't published externally, but I can't begin to describe to you the value that has had internally. And
Really?
me, like, yeah, dude, it's worthy of compensation. In any case, I do have that killer instinct. I think I tend to be pretty, like, when in the business context, I honor the context and maximize profits as much as I can.
Oh yeah, no. When I'm in a business,
Yeah.
like, I definitely, even as a frontline employee, I want to know how we make money. I want to make sure that my goals are aligned with that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just not the person that's going to go into a negotiation and negotiate the numbers.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I understand that, like, more money, more people equals better, money for the company.
Yeah.
Like, I will make sure that when I offer strategic advice, that it is aligned with those goals.
Good.
I think that's with that junior engineer kind of thing, where it's like, ooh, I'm totally excited about this edgy new technology, therefore I want to use it in your app, in the company app. It's like, no, okay, it's gonna. Sorry, kid, but it's got to be like driven from like actual business goals. And if we can achieve something based on what we have today and get it out the door really quickly, well, we're going to do that, because that's
Awesome. Hey, on that note, Jack, listen, it's been such a pleasure having, like, I'm so moved, first of all, to have, like, the inspiration behind this podcast just casually as a guest here. But you've taught us so much, between how to grow a YouTube channel, to how to get into open source, just issues and pull requests, to MCP and this deep dive and this ridiculous innovation that you've had here, like Bolt.new and V0, but local. Incredible. So from me and on behalf of all the listeners, thank you, man. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And, let's get together again.
Thank you for joining my discussion with Jack Herrington. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and frankly, I enjoyed it a ton. I've looked up to Jack for years, and literally everything he said was like gold to me. If you feel the same way, then consider sharing this episode on any of your social channels just to make it more discoverable. That's why we do this podcast, to make stuff more discoverable and accessible to people. If you're learning from and or enjoying this content, then a great way to support it without really any cost is to like the video on YouTube if you're watching there and subscribe to the channel. Maybe leave a comment. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then leave a review. Literally anything up to 5 stars would be super helpful in the algorithm surfacing this content for other people. Ultimately, this is a service to you and the listeners. So I want to take a moment and just thank you for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for listening so far. And most importantly, thank you for your interest in software engineering.